How are my levels? Sweet. Welcome to Love Uninterrupted. I have a message, actually, but one. And the message is about location and the impact of certain locations. So if you've listened to any of the previous audio landscapes that I have released, or readings, whatever you want to call them, then you are familiar with me providing a different location that may have some resonance for you, resonance with you, whether that's a direct line in your lineage, or whether it's a spiritual calling, or the reasons could range, but I've spoken about that in previous readings. And so I did readings earlier today out away from where I would typically do readings in my home. And in doing that and also receiving messages for myself, I got the inkling or the idea that, of course, our energy changes depending on the environment that we're in. So I have these 4 locations to bring to you all. The first is Lake Wanaka. This is in New Zealand. The primary element is water. The key energies are stillness, peace, pause, and mirroring. So the primary element being water, then the immediate association is that this has a relation to our emotional landscape, our emotional arena, the emotional body. Lake Wanaka sits almost central to the Otago Lake District beside a mountain range on the South Island of New Zealand. Wanaka town itself has become quite a hip place, particularly in the ski season, and whilst it would be difficult to miss the lake's sapphire blue color, particularly viewed from Mount Wanaka, it is amazing how many adrenaline-filled skiers actually do not set foot near its shore. I think this is so because of the place's inherent calmness. Lake Wanaka has been described as a living entity by the Maori peoples. According to Maori legend, the Maori chief Te Rakahatu dug out the beds of Lake Wanaka and Lake Hawaii with a huge ko, which is a digging stick, and he piled the debris high to form the surrounding ranges. The word Wanaka can be literally translated as legend. The former generation of Maori believed that a curious animal, something like a beaver, lived at Lake Wanaka and Lake Hawaii, and the Maoris called it Karahi. Waho Island in the middle of Lake Wanaka, reachable by kayak or boat, offers another level of peace. Here anyone can enjoy a gentle climb up to the beautiful Orathuza Pool, the small alpine lake within the lake, a remnant of the Ice Age. It is a wonderful spot to just sit and be and enjoy the sociable resident weka birds that like to gather in the long afternoons. Lake Wanaka is a place where Tupua are said to inhabit. Tupua are like fairies or demons, depending on their personalities. Places where Tupua are living are considered magical and at times dangerous, but always sites of transformational power. This is also a sacred gathering place for Punami. Punamu is the Maori collective term for green semi-precious stones, scientifically referred to as nephrite. Kawakawa, Kahorangi, Inanga. semi-nephrite, or less formally termed New Zealand jade or greenstone. When you visit, walk around the circumference of the lake as far as you can go and sit quietly in a spot that speaks to you. Contemplate the gentle movements of water and connect with your breathing and calm the unique rhythm of your heartbeat. Alternatively, visit the floating island in the lake. Watch the birds go by and bless a piece of endemic greenstone in the waters to take home. So that's the first location that came forward today as I sat with the intention of finding specifically pulling messages about locations. So I'm going to move on because I don't want to make this video extremely long. The next location is Death Valley. And as I'm reading the description of the location, I invite you to close your eyes and really begin to get a feel for what the energy is like in that space. Because what I feel like is as I read these words, the frequency and vibration of these locations are able to come through my voice. So feel free to do that as I read these, and I would really love to hear what you experience as you're listening to me talk about these different locations. Okay, so Death Valley is in the USA. There's not a specific state. It doesn't have a specific state or anything like that. The primary element is fire, and the key energies are heat, completion, resilience, extremes, and silence. At the time of writing, Death Valley was recording one of its highest temperatures ever, a scorching 130 degrees Fahrenheit. This is consistently the hottest place on Earth, with even a day's low temperature often being hot enough to fry eggs. On July 12, 2012, the day's minimum temperature was 107 degrees Fahrenheit, equaling the record for the world's hottest minimum temperature. That same day's average temperature was 117.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the world's hottest temperature averaged over 24 hours ever recorded. The depth and long, narrow shape of Death Valley are the influential factors in its extreme summer temperatures. Its basin shape surrounded by high mountains, its position at almost 300 feet below sea level combined with sparse vegetation allows a kind of superheating to occur on the surface of the desert. The clear air creates winds that then move across the basin, creating even higher temperatures. The hottest air temperature ever recorded in Death Valley was 134 degrees Fahrenheit. On July 10th, 1913, at Furnace Creek, which is arguably the hottest temperature ever recorded in history. Yet life exists here. The indigenous inhabitants of the valley for 1,000 years or more have been the Timbisha tribe, Panamint Shoshone of Native Americans. Timbisha means ochre plant paint, the colors of which are varied here. Animal life here is also surprisingly lively and varied, even near the cracked salt pan. The animals have adapted to the extreme conditions and are very resilient. Most of the animals are nocturnal. It's cooler at night. But also bobcats, lizards, hawks, and bighorn sheep are active in the area. One of the very mysterious things here is the phenomenon of the moving stones of racetrack playa. These are stones that move on their own, leaving clearly defined tracks on the pan's surface. Whilst explanations have ranged from spirits moving the stones to the movement being caused by micro winds, the current theory suggests that small crystals of ice form under the rocks, and with the reduced friction, they are moved by the wind. Either way, it is mysterious and beautiful. When you visit, there is no escaping the dryness and heat here, so ensure you take safety precautions with vehicles and water. While the most comfortable times of day to visit are morning and evening, there is something to be said for experiencing just for a moment this kind of extreme temperature at its peak. Go to the wide barren salt pan or racetrack playa and connect with a different kind of beauty. So I don't want to give any additional explanation in between these messages. I just want the energy of the location to really come through. So I'm just going to move on to this next location. The next location is Uluru. Uluru is in Australia. The primary elements are earth and water. The key energies are creation, blood, magic, and fertility. Nothing quite prepares you for the sight of this blood red rock, massive in scale, seemingly materializing out of the flat desert. One of the iconic sites of Australia, Uluru attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, even though it is in a remote environment. The Anangu people are the traditional custodians of Uluru and are the holders of the intricate and complex creation stories that surround this very sacred piece of geography. The many folds and fissures of the rock are not just geological features to the Anangu, but sacred places of mythos, individually holding magic and energy. And some are believed to even have creator beings still living within them. Uluru is a magnet for fertility and life. The density of animal life, particularly mammals, is greatest near the water runoff areas of Uluru, allowing animals and birds to flourish where water has been caught in pools and rock clefts. In some ways, the Great Rock is its own ecosystem, providing life-giving water when the dry season extends long after the rains. The energies of Uluru ebb and flow like the seasons, and as you walk around the rock, it is apparent that different sections have their own genius Loki. The air shimmers in places, not just with heat. When you visit, watch the light play upon Uluru and see how this mysterious rock changes color continually. Take a walk with the indigenous peoples and listen to the stories of the dream time associated with this ancient place. Do not climb Uluru, as this disrespects both the original peoples and the genius Loki of the place. Photography in certain areas of Uluru is prohibited due to their secret and sacred nature. This request too should be noted. Instead of climbing, walk around Uluru and treat it like a moving pilgrimage should you wish, opening all your senses to the experience. Now, as I close the description of this location, as I was out on location today, I received a message about our senses, or about your senses and the use of your senses. The message was simply to use your senses. And it extended to using your physical and those extrasensory ones that many do not take into account. So all of our senses, our 5 physical senses, as well as those extrasensory ones, they all provide guidance to us. They are all constantly communicating with us, guiding us to the places and things that are for us, that are for our greatest good, whether it be a great meal or guiding us to a place that is going to replenish us emotionally or physically or mentally. As I got the message about using your senses, the analogy came in reference to animals, and that we still have that animal-like nature where animals utilize their senses to find food, to find safety, to find shelter, to find their way home. And so we are doing those things, or we are being invited to tap into our senses. And as we do that, we'll start discovering more ways that our bodies are communicating to us and through us. So with that, let's get to the final location, Gobekle Tepe. And this is a location that came up in a message a couple of days ago. This is in Turkey. The primary element is earth. The key energies are veneration, devotion, deep connection with higher self, and wonder. Connecting with my higher power is a timeless act, and it is within my DNA. It is a natural and useful part of my life, is the affirmation that goes with this location. So this is the mother of all temples, Gobekle Tepe. Older by far than the Great Pyramids and Stonehenge, this newly unearthed site is the oldest monumental architecture ever found. At present, it is believed that Gobekle Tepe was constructed around 9000 BC, and we know it was built with great sophistication. Gobekle is beautiful. There are huge pillars carved with animal figures, including birds, snakes, and lizards, and also distinctively stylized human figures. Some of the huge rocks that make up the complex have been purposefully buried, anchoring this site into the earth more deeply. There is a round amphitheater-like structure being exhumed at the time of writing, which promises to show that a community larger than first thought prayed and made their devotions there. The specialness of the site goes beyond the architecture to the intention behind the construction. It was thought by scholars that we, as humans, settled in places due to the availability of good farming land. We traded off being nomads for fertile places in which to stay and live. We built villages and settlements around our agricultural activities, and that included building places of worship. Gobekle Tepe completely turns this theory on its head. The oldest temple found on the planet was built on a place of power that was not first a farming territory with a settlement that grew up around it. In this case, veneration came first, not agriculture. We venerated and honored the deities first and built villages and agriculture around this, not the other way around. It seemed that our most ancient ancestors were devoted to the gods and then built the rest of their lives around this. When you visit at the time of writing, there are no crowds yet, as it's a new discovery poured over mainly by archaeologists. So track down a friendly one and ask loads of questions. Then walk around the whole site and just soak in the fact that people came to this place to worship, and a whole society grew around it. Such was its power. I suggest you plug yourself in at sunset when the place begins to come alive and the shadows become long. This location and how it is being described as being built first for veneration made me think of the scripture, and I do not know the scripture itself, but seek first the kingdom and all these other things will be added to you is the thought that came to my mind. And that is, I believe, of course, our forefathers, our ancestors, those that came before us knew, our most ancient ancestors knew to venerate the gods, to venerate the powers that came before, because it was understood that there were powers that had more knowledge, advanced knowledge, and could assist us. It was part of our knowledge. And so now we've stepped away from putting veneration of that higher power, those that have come before us, that are paving the way for us on our paths. We've stepped away from that, and we have begun venerating the things, and we're being directed back to our true source. So I did not want to make this video long. It's longer than I anticipated it already. But if you are still listening and you are hearing my voice, you are extremely unique, because I do absolutely nothing to promote and or market this content other than be myself. So count yourself as a cool ass person, because you found your way right here to my spot. And I am truly thankful that you are here. And so with that said, I hope to talk to you next time. Peace.